Hi everyone, let's talk about Chiron conjunct the Sun in a synastry chart. If you don't know what a synastry chart is, this is not a natal placement. This is what happens when two people's birth charts come together. When one is laid on top of the other one, if one person's Sun lays directly on top of the other person's Chiron or vice versa. That is a conjunction. So what happens when we experience this between two people is that quite literally, the Sun person is shining and illuminating the Chiron person's wounds, because that's what Chiron is. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's a place in your chart where you have been wounded and where you continue to feel wounded and are being asked to evolve and heal. And the Sun is the sun. It's the place where we have daylight. It's where something is brought to light. So with Chiron synastry placements, you'll hear me say this a bunch if you watch my other videos, but it can go multiple ways, and that depends on a couple of different factors. One is if the two people are willing to be very gentle with one another, and if the two people are genuinely trying to evolve and be conscientious of like their ego wounds, and just be conscious people of the fact that this occurrence of this illumination of wounding is not a personal problem. It is simply objectively an occurrence of two energies coming together and contacting one another. So taking an objective stance is really, really helpful with things like this. And like if the Chiron person is willing to be vulnerable with the Sun person, then it will go a lot better than if they're not. And also the Sun person will need to understand that they are illuminating something that's very difficult and painful for the Chiron person. So them having that awareness and that sensitivity is really valuable, so that no one, again, takes anything personally, and so that they can kind of tread lightly and be gentle with each other. But ultimately, this can be a pairing that can be extremely healing, because like laying out in the sun in the summer, it feels really, really good to be under those warm rays. And having a wound, like, you don't want it to be stuffed away. A wound doesn't heal if you wrap it and keep it wrapped like the entire time. Like at some point it needs to breathe. So it can be like really beautiful, I think, especially in intimate relationships, because those are genuinely or generally spaces where we do have permission to be a lot more vulnerable with each other. Although I do think we should challenge that norm and bring more intimacy into other kinds of relationships. But let's say it's just like a coworker and they have their Sun on a person's Chiron, then it's like you don't feel safe like being vulnerable with that person. So it can feel like that person just makes you uncomfortable if you're the Chiron person. It can be like, dang, it can feel like they see you, like they can see something that you try to hide and that most people don't just see right away. It can feel like somehow they're just honing in on this thing that like you don't want everyone having access to if you're the Chiron person. So it can be kind of eerie in that way. I have it with my cousin. My cousin's Sun is conjunct my Chiron, and it's like we've gotten really, really close. He's like my closest cousin. But at first, because I only met him like when we were both adults, like I only met him in the last couple years, it was like I did feel really uncomfortable around him, and I was like, what is going on with this dynamic? Like, this is like super weird. It felt like the connection had a need for the two of us to have like a separate conversation and like just get to know each other. Like there was some like need for deepening the connection that we could feel when we were all hanging out. And like me and him ended up going on a road trip and like becoming really tight friends. And it's really cool. He's like my favorite cousin, but that's just the nature of Chiron. It's like, it's not always comfortable having bright light shown on it. But it's like, if you can find spaces and be an alchemist with your partner, if it is with your partner, to work with the combination of these energies in the most beneficial way, then it's like, it can just be really healing. Because in some senses, when a wound or something that we feel ashamed of is like hidden away, then it never has the chance to come out and heal. So it's interesting because I think for the Chiron people in this combination, they can feel like there's this part of themselves that feels scary to show people and it feels vulnerable. And when they initially contact the sun person, they will feel like this is even worse. Like, oh my God, you know, as I was saying, like, why is this person seeing this thing that I don't want everyone to see? But over the course of time, as you move through this relationship and like hopefully determine that the two of you are safe for each other, then it's like, it can almost feel like for the Chiron person, like, why was this a big deal? Like, because it's like, oh, now that it's out in the light, it's nothing, you know? Like, kind of like if you're journaling and you have this terrible emotion coming through your body and then you write it out on a piece of paper, it can be like, oh, well, that was nothing because now it's just a piece of paper. And before it felt so overwhelming. So that can be like the effect of this combination, if you know what I mean. And for the sun person, it can be validating for them to know that like their presence just naturally nourishes and like brightens the other person. But as I did mention, like just treading lightly and knowing that like initially you'll really need to take caution and don't call your person crazy for feeling vulnerable in the way that they do. It's a very natural thing. But like the sun person can take a large fascination in the Chiron person, and it can actually be like a point of attraction in some partnerships, especially partnerships for people who are just interested in those kinds of things, like people who like complexity in their partner. It can be like kind of empowering for the sun person, and it can be intriguing for the sun person to know and get to know the Chiron person and kind of like love them in these intimate and sensitive ways. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to comment below. I do take requests. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.